Welcome to the deep dive. We are here to tear through a stack of sources and distill the most potent wisdom for you, the learner. Today, we are immersing ourselves in the philosophy of, well, a motivational giant, Les Brown. Specifically, the blueprint for relentless success captured in his work, Live Your Dreams.
Yeah, and it's not just a blueprint, is it? It's more like a living testament to resilience.
Exactly.
Les Brown's own story is just so foundational to his message. I mean, you're looking at a man who was classified as educably mentally retarded in school.
Wow.
That's a label that carries immense social weight, you know?
Yeah.
Yet he somehow transformed that very constraint into the fuel for a global career, became one of the world's most celebrated public speakers.
That transformation itself is like the ultimate argument for his entire philosophy, isn't it?
It really is.
Absolutely. That journey, defying how others define you, that's what makes his message so powerful. So our mission in this deep dive is maybe threefold. First, let's analyze his core principles. Right. You know, the hunger, the vision, the sheer determination he talks about.
Right.
And then second, let's try to place them within a broader context. We've got sources from philosophy, rhetoric, even modern psychology here.
Contextualize it.
And finally, we really want to distill the most practical advice on how your personal belief, how external perception, and critically disciplined action all intersect to create success.
Yeah, we want to show you how to move from feeling maybe stuck or defined by limits to feeling genuinely unstoppable. This deep dive is really about the hard work of internal programming.
Internal programming. I like that.
Because if Les Brown could override a formal educational classification like that, what limitations are you maybe allowing to define your potential?
Good question.
Let's find out how to write that new program for yourself.
Okay, so let's unpack this internal war. Brown teaches that dreams aren't just passive hopes, right? They're active forces. They propel you.
Yeah, propelling forces. He vividly describes his own consciousness becoming an active force.
Yeah.
That's what drove him to pursue greatness.
Even when everything else, social status, education level, might have suggested, a much smaller life for him.
Exactly. And that concept, the active consciousness, that's the key. The first battle, maybe the hardest one, is always fought entirely inside your own mind. And we can actually see evidence of where this active force started to form. It wasn't just in rejecting those labels, but in his earliest inspirations, too.
That's where his personal history becomes so insightful, isn't it? He talks about being part of the Under the Pillow Club. Kids listening to late night radio.
Right, huddled under the covers.
And yeah, the rhythm and blues were entertaining, sure. But what really captivated him, what ultimately set his path, was, he says, the patter of the disc jockeys.
The patter. It wasn't the music that signaled his future. It was the rhetoric, the way they talked. He was focused on communication, on performance, the ability to shape narratives, command attention, influence emotion.
So even back then?
Yeah, this early observation suggests he kind of understood, maybe intuitively, that if he could master the delivery, the way something was said, he could override any static, any negativity the world put in his way.
This fascination with controlling the narrative, that leads us straight to the crucial role of perception. His defiance of that early negative label, it connects really powerfully to Stoic philosophy, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. If we look at the Stoics, they insist that perception is just the mechanism we use to interpret external events.
Right.
And it's the only area where we have absolute control.
So the event itself being labeled educably mentally retarded in Stoic terms, that's just external, morally neutral.
Pretty much. The suffering comes entirely from the judgment we attach to it.
Okay.
Les Brown, maybe not consciously using Stoicism, but through sheer will, chose to filter that judgment out.
He changed his perception of it.
Exactly. The Stoic goal is to separate the reliable signals from the destructive ones, filter out the prejudice, expectation, and fear, as they'd say.
And what's left?
Just the truth of the situation.
Yeah.
Okay, he was a student who needed to find a different way to learn. That's it.
So what's fascinating here is that idea, you hear it a lot from Stoicism, that the obstacle itself becomes the way.
Right. The obstacle is the way.
The constraint isn't a wall. It's actually a reason to redirect your energy, maybe even prove yourself. It tests you, improves your internal state, makes you more robust.
And this isn't just, ancient philosophy collecting dust on a shelf. Modern psychology confirms its strength.
How so?
Well, think about Brené Brown's research into shame and self-doubt. She identifies the core psychological struggle as that deep fear of not being worthy of real connection, or just feeling fundamentally not enough.
That feeling of not enough.
That's exactly what an institutional label like the one Les Brown received aims to instill, consciously or not.
Right. It defines you from the outside.
So his entire career becomes this testament to cultivating resilience against that foundational shame. He demonstrates that your worth is internal, it's intrinsic, it's not defined by some external decree.
Okay, so if that internal battle is won by shifting perception, the next crucial step seems to be accepting ownership, taking responsibility for your choices.
Yes. And this brings us right to the principle of proactivity. Stephen Covey famously defined it. Our behavior is a function of our decisions, not our conditions.
Decisions, not conditions. That's powerful.
It really is. This is the moment people realize they possess what Covey called responsibility.
Responsibility, ability to choose your response.
Exactly. That profound ability to choose how you respond in the space between the stimulus, what happens to you, and your feeling about it.
Give me an example.
Okay, someone spills coffee on your shirt. A reactive person just lashes out, right? Based on anger.
Knee-jerk reaction.
But a proactive person uses that tiny moment, that space, to choose an appropriate value-driven response. Maybe patience, maybe humor, maybe just letting it go.
So reactive people are controlled by feelings, circumstances, moods.
Exactly. While proactive people are driven by their internalized, chosen values.
But taking that proactive stance, it feels hard. It means accepting the full weight of personal responsibility, doesn't it?
It does. Because if you don't consciously choose, you are, by default, empowering everything else, circumstances, moods, other people to control you.
Which is, as you said, a profound abdication of self-agency, giving up your power.
It connects beautifully to Viktor Frankl's logotherapy, too, his work in the concentration camps.
Incredible story.
He observed that the meaning of life isn't something you just invent, it's detected. You discover it,
Okay.
and then you have to answer for it. That's responsibility, the requirement to answer for your own life. Covey put it in computer terms.
How so?
Habit 1 says you are the programmer. You must accept that responsibility first. Only then can habit 2 follow, which is write the program. You can't write the program if you don't believe you're the programmer.
Okay, but we absolutely have to acknowledge the real tension here. I mean, for many people, obstacles aren't just bad moods or unfair labels. They're profoundly systemic.
Yes, absolutely crucial point.
We can't really talk about motivation without addressing the reality of external constraints, the legacy of injustice.
Precisely. You look at someone like Barack Obama, reflecting on economic inequality. He detailed how historical factors systematically excluded specific populations from generating wealth.
Yeah, things like
Exclusion from unions, denial of loans to African-American business owners, and critically, the inability to access things like FHA mortgages or own property in developing suburbs after the war.
So basically, the tools for building wealth were just blocked.
Structurally blocked. This meant that generational wealth accumulation, which is really the bedrock of long-term economic security for many families, was just not possible for entire communities.
The implication there is pretty stark then. Motivational speakers like Brown are operating in a reality where the starting line is fundamentally uneven.
Massively uneven.
And that legacy of defeat, the lack of inherited financial stability, gets passed down for generations. So how does Brown's philosophy of fierce individual hunger really function when the system itself feels rigged against you?
That is the critical tension, isn't it? The philosopher or the motivational expert has to acknowledge that systemic reality. You can't ignore it.
Right.
But you also can't allow it to become a justification for inaction, for giving up. Think about someone like Sojourner Truth.
Yeah.
Speaking on individual sovereignty, she argued fiercely that each soul must depend wholly on itself.
Even amidst brutal injustice.
Especially then. She pointed out the sheer hypocrisy of society talking about sheltering women from the fierce storms of life when those same storms, societal and natural, beat down on Black women just as violently, if not more so, than on men.
Wow.
Her call was for radical self-reliance right in the face of demonstrable, brutal unfairness.
So the response isn't denying the hardship or the historical trauma.
Not at all.
It's the refusal to be ultimately defeated by that conditioning. Brown's legacy, like Sojourner Truth's, is built on the fact that despite these deeply embedded challenges, many individuals did, as Obama put it, successfully make a way out of no way.
They had to.
The challenge, then, is transforming that historical anger, that righteous anger perhaps, into present-day proactive drive.
That's the alchemy. Using the fire not to burn down, but to forge something new. Okay, so if the internal war is won, or at least managed, by shifting perception and claiming responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
the next step involves looking outward, but crucially looking locally. This takes us straight to Russell Conwell's incredibly powerful lecture, Acres of Diamonds.
Acres of diamonds. This principle feels essential, especially for anyone just starting out or feeling stuck.
It really is. Conwell's core teaching is, well, it sounds almost deceptively simple.
What is it?
Wealth, opportunity, greatness. They're generally local,
Yeah.
right under your nose. And they're often missed because people are too busy looking somewhere else.
Looking for exotic locations, grand, far-off schemes.
Exactly. Searching for diamonds in Borneo, like he says, when they're actually under their own front porch, metaphorically speaking.
He uses a very specific story to illustrate this, doesn't he?
He does, and it really highlights the folly of looking outward when the solution is tied to your immediate skills and environment. He tells the story of this young man in Massachusetts.
Okay.
Goes to Yale, studies mines and mining, becomes a top-tier mining engineer, super qualified.
Right.
But he scorns the local work, turns down even a professorship paying $45 a week, which was decent money then, because he thinks true riches lie elsewhere. California gold rush, you know.
So he heads west, chasing the dream.
Yep. Leaves his hometown behind. Meanwhile, the guy who buys the farm is just a farmer digging potatoes one day, and he notices something glinting in the old stone wall on the property.
Don't tell me.
It's a block of native silver, about 8 inches square. Massive value.
No way. And the expert.
The highly trained mineralogist who wouldn't work locally, who scorned his hometown. He had literally been born and raised on that exact homestead.
Oh, that's brutal.
Gets worse. Conwell notes that the expert had actually sat on that very silver block while negotiating the sale of the farm he was so eager to leave.
He was sitting on his fortune while dreaming of finding one elsewhere. Wow. He missed it. Not because he lacked expertise. He had tons of that. He missed it because he lacked maybe imagination, or he just had contempt for the familiar.
So the application to Les Brown's message is what?
Profound. Your dreams of greatness, your opportunities, they need to be rooted in your immediate environment. Your unique talents applied here, now, not chasing some far-off, perfect situation.
Well, the diamonds are in your backyard.
Because your deep knowledge of your local community, its needs, its problems, that is your competitive advantage. That's where you can actually make a difference and find success.
Okay, but let me push back a bit. Isn't Conwell's Acres of Diamonds idea maybe a little dangerously naive today? I mean, if the diamonds were so obvious, why did the trained expert miss them?
Good question.
And how do we find local opportunity when global competition feels so fierce? Everything's connected now. That's where Conwell's critique of privilege comes in, and it's really sharp. He argues that the highly trained, but let's say entitled person, often can't recognize opportunity.
Why not?
Because they haven't been forced to struggle. They haven't developed the hunger. He actually points out that statistics back then in Massachusetts showed something startling.
What was it?
Not one rich man's son out of 17 ever dies rich.
Wow. 1 out of 17. Why?
Conwell says they lack the necessary discipline that comes from honest toil, from having to figure things out when you don't have a safety net.
So it's the value of genuine struggle again that connects back to Brown's hunger.
Absolutely. Conwell insisted that a poor boy's discipline, the resourcefulness learned through necessity, is worth more than a university education.
And the rich kid.
Often lacks that driving necessity, that hunger Les Brown talks about is missing. Conwell has this almost comical description. He says, the wealthy father won't let his son work, thinks it's beneath him, and the mother thinks it's a social disgrace for her poor, weak, little, lily-fingered, sissy sort of a boy to earn an honest living.
Ouch. Lily-fingered.
It's harsh language, but his point is clear. Motivation gets eroded by too much comfort, too much protection from struggle.
So how does this connect back to finding those local diamonds?
Conwell argued that opportunity lies in understanding local needs. It comes from showing enough genuine interest in your neighbor, your community, to find out what they truly require.
So it's about empathy and observation.
Yes. He says, basically, if you had cared enough to take an interest in your neighbor's affairs, find out what they needed, you would have been rich. It's about solving immediate, localized problems with intense focus. That's the modern business application.
Okay, bringing this intense focus back to the personal domain, back to Les Brown, his advice on localizing your dreams includes a pretty practical step, an environmental check, especially regarding relationships.
Yes, this is crucial. If you're trying to build momentum, you absolutely need to check your allies, your circle.
What's the question he asks?
He asks you directly, Are the people you associate with pushing you up or dragging you down? Simple, but profound.
Pushing you up or dragging you down.
And this is the practical, sometimes, yeah, maybe ruthless application of that autonomy we talked about.
Autonomy.
Taking ownership.
Yeah.
If you are serious about pursuing greatness, Brown says you must promise yourself to end those relationships that fundamentally drag you down.
End them. That sounds harsh.
It can be. But his point is, you are responsible for your life. If you allow negative influences, people who doubt you, drain your energy, shrink your vision, you're essentially forfeiting your status as the programmer. You're letting them write your code.
It's like self-preservation for the visionary, then.
Exactly. It reminds me, too, of the work in The Artist's Way. Julia Cameron advises listing your nurturing friends.
Nurturing friends.
Yeah.
What defines them?
People who give you a sense of your own competency, your own possibility. They reflect your strength back to you.
Okay, and this is really important. You have to distinguish a nurturing friend from an enabling friend, right?
Oh, absolutely critical distinction. An enabling friend might sound supportive, but...
How so?
They might say, oh, you poor thing, you're so talented, but the world is just too hard. Don't worry, I'll take care of you. See the difference.
Yeah, they kind of keep you small. They maintain the narrative that you're helpless without them.
Precisely. Whereas a nurturing friend gives you the message, wow, this is tough, but you are strong enough to figure this out. I believe in you, and I am here to witness your success, maybe offer some real support, but not take over.
So autonomy requires setting really clear boundaries.
Yes. Against anyone, even people who mean well, who inadvertently limit your vision or reinforce your self-doubt. You need space to grow.
Okay, so we've tackled the internal mindset shift, the importance of looking locally for opportunity. Now let's get into the mechanics of momentum. How do you actually do it?
Right, because as you pointed out earlier, you can't just think your way to success. You have to commit to continuous, deliberate action.
That sounds like Anthony Robbins' territory.
Absolutely. That's his core principle, really. Success isn't a destination, it's an ongoing process of growth. And the essence of life, he argues, is action, not just accumulating knowledge.
The physics analogy you used earlier comes to mind.
Yeah, if you understand physics perfectly but never actually lift a weight, you gain zero strength. We are often, he says, unconsciously blind to the steps needed for success. We don't even know what we don't know.
So we need external systems or strategies.
Exactly. Systems to force us into action, or at least guide us there.
Yeah.
Which leads to his emphasis on modeling.
Modeling. Okay, explain that. If success leaves clues.
Then the fastest path is to follow those clues, instead of spending years on trial and error, making all the mistakes yourself.
Which can be incredibly discouraging.
Totally. Robbins advocates replicating the specific behaviors, the underlying belief systems, and even the physiology, how they stand, breathe, move of successful individual.
To achieve similar results much more efficiently.
It really is presented as the ultimate shortcut if you are rigorous about the modeling. It's not just superficial stuff like wearing the same brand of watch.
It's deeper.
It's asking, what is the actual emotional and intellectual state of the person I admire? How do they structure their day? What specific beliefs do they hold about failure, about opportunity, about themselves?
And Robbins gives us actual techniques for this kind of internal programming, right? Like manipulating submodalities.
Yes, submodalities. It sounds technical, but it's a highly practical skill. Let's break it down.
Please do.
Submodalities are the specific qualities of your internal representations, the pictures, sounds, feelings you create in your mind. Think of them like the controls on a TV or computer screen.
Like brightness, size, sound.
Exactly. Brightness, size, color saturation, distance, volume, location of an image in your mental space. All those things.
Okay, so how does manipulating them help?
The idea is that your brain responds directly to these qualities. For instance, if you feel stuck or fearful about an obstacle, you might notice that your mental image of that obstacle is, say, large, dark, looming, maybe has a scary soundtrack.
I can picture that.
So you consciously manipulate that image. You could shrink it down, make it dim and blurry, maybe push it far away into the distance, turn the sound off, or make it comical like a squeaky toy.
Okay.
And by doing that, you reduce its emotional impact. It feels less threatening. Simultaneously, you take the mental image of your desired goal, your success, and you make that one huge, bright, vibrant close-up. Maybe add powerful, inspiring internal music, turn up the positive feelings associated with it.
So you're basically rewiring your brain's associations.
Pretty much. You're programming yourself to associate the steps toward your goal with intense pleasure and significantly reduced fear or aversion towards the obstacle. That conscious manipulation is the programmer at work.
Being the programmer, not just the program.
Exactly. And what sustains that programming over the long haul, having a compelling future.
A compelling future.
Robbins calls this the food on which our souls thrive. Without a vision that genuinely excites you, pulls you forward, motivation eventually fades.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And this future, it has to be tied to, what was the acronym? CNI.
Yes. CNNI, constant and never-ending improvement. He identifies this relentless commitment to getting better as the universal insurance policy for lifelong happiness.
Universal insurance policy. That's a bold claim. Why is it so crucial?
Because life will continually present new challenges, new problems. Things change. CNI means you're actively looking for small incremental gains every single day.
It's not about waiting for huge breakthroughs.
No, not necessarily. It's about committing to be just marginally better today than you were yesterday, maybe 1% better. It's about those micro adjustments. Consistently applied over time, that's where the real transformation happens.
And this continuous action, striving to meet challenges, this leads us nicely into flow, doesn't it? Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's work.
Directly into it. Flow, that state of optimal experience, occurs when your skills are perfectly matched, or maybe slightly stretched, to cope with the challenge at hand.
And the feeling is?
Intense concentration, the disappearance of self-consciousness, you're not worried about how you look or sound, and often a beautiful distortion of time. Hours can feel like minutes.
That state of flow, it feels like the ultimate reward for taking on a worthwhile challenge. It's deeply satisfying.
It is. But here's the deeply counterintuitive part, the cultural paradox that Csikszentmihalyi's research exposes. It's about work versus leisure. His studies found quite consistently that people often report feeling more skillful, more challenged, happier, stronger, more creative, basically more in flow when they are deeply engaged on the job.
More often at work than during leisure time. That seems backwards to how we usually think.
Exactly. Culturally, we tend to stereotype work as this burden, this imposition, something to be endured or avoided. We prioritize leisure time.
Yeah, thank God it's Friday.
Right. But often during that leisure time, our skills are underutilized. We might feel bored, passive, even a bit dissatisfied, unless the leisure activity itself is challenging, like playing a sport or a complex game.
So we're kind of sticking to this ingrained cultural stereotype that work should feel like a drag.
Even when our actual lived experience often proves that focused challenge usually found at work brings deeper satisfaction and more frequent flow states.
So Les Brown's philosophy, Robbins' push for action, they demand we embrace the challenge, not run from it, because that's where growth, and therefore flow, actually resides.
Precisely. And practically speaking, how do we structure our lives to increase the chances of entering this state consistently? How do we manage all this?
That sounds like we need some organization. Maybe Zig Ziglar.
Exactly. We turn to Zig Ziglar's classic guidance on goals. It's very straightforward, but very powerful.
What's the process?
First, you absolutely must commit your goals to paper. Get them out of your head and onto the page. Second, list them in order of importance, what truly matters most.
Prioritize.
Yes. And third, be incredibly organized to ensure your effort actually aligns with those stated priorities.
That organization piece feels key, because ambition often leads to competing goals, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely. You might aspire, as Ziglar used the example, to be the top salesperson in your company, and the club golf champion, and the deeply committed, active president of the PTA.
All worthy goals, but potentially conflicting in terms of time and energy.
Exactly. Ziglar recognizes you might have to compromise consciously. For instance, you might realize that becoming the club golf champ requires, say, 6 hours of practice a day.
Yeah, that's a huge commitment.
So you might consciously decide, okay, I need to settle for being a pretty good golfer, maybe an 8 handicap instead of the absolute champion, so that I can dedicate the necessary time and energy to being a great PTA president.
It forces you to make choices based on your real priorities.
The structure forces prioritization. Without writing goals down and ordering them, you risk scattering your energy, putting forth a mediocre effort across 3 conflicting domains instead of excelling in what matters most.
So the goal is focused execution.
Focused execution, making sure the necessary action, that's Robbins, is balanced with your available time and skill level leading towards flow, and dictated by your most important consciously chosen values. That's Covey and Frankel. It all ties together.
You know, when we talk about Les Brown, his incredible success is just inseparable from his speaking style. It's so dynamic.
Oh, absolutely. It's central.
To motivate millions the way he has, you have to master the art of rhetoric, the art of public speaking. But rhetoric, as we kind of touched on earlier, it has a bit of a complex, even controversial history.
It really does. If you go back to classical philosophers like Plato and Socrates, they often expressed, well, frankly, disdain for oratory.
Disdain. Why?
They tended to view it as a mere knack. The Greek word was imperia, like cooking or cosmetics, a craft based purely on experience and rule of thumb, rather than on a rational philosophical theory of truth.
So they saw it as potentially manipulative?
Yeah, they worried it was just about pandering to audience desires, aiming for gratification and persuasion rather than conveying actual moral truth, maybe smoothing over the rough edges of reality.
Okay, but Brown's message is fundamentally one of truth, isn't it? Self-transformation, facing reality. To reach the masses and inspire genuine, deep change, you surely need more than just dry facts.
You absolutely do. You need persuasive power. You need that emotional transparency that can sometimes override purely intellectual resistance. People need to feel the message too.
And that's where someone like Cicero comes in, right? He had a different view of effective delivery.
A very different view. Cicero, a master orator himself, defined truly effective delivery. He described it using like amazing Latin phrase, actuavaria, vehemens, plena animi, plena spiritus, plena doloris, plena veritatis.
Okay, break that down for us.
It means action, the delivery that is varied, vehement, full of spirit, full of breath life, full of pain, and full of truth.
Full of pain, full of truth. That sounds like Les Brown.
Doesn't it? He embodies that vehement emotional force. He draws directly on the pain of his past struggles, the label, the poverty, to imbue his message with undeniable authenticity and truth.
Yet there's that powerful philosophical counterpoint we should consider. Seneca, the Stoic. He offered a very different argument, one favoring simplicity. He famously said, "The language of truth is simple."
Right. Veritas non recipit fuco, truth admits no makeup.
So how does Brown reconcile that passionate, almost theatrical complexity of Cicero's ideal with the necessary, stark simplicity Seneca advocates for truth?
I think the synthesis, the bridge between those two, is achieved through the speaker's character, their ethos, as the Greeks called it.
Character.
Explain that. Quintilian, another great Roman rhetorician, suggested that the most eloquent communicator must, above all, embody good character. He actually noted that it's more fitting, more persuasive, for a decent person to simply show himself as honest and trustworthy than for his argument to be, say, mathematically precise or overly ornate.
So the audience trusts the person first.
Yes. And Brown achieves this. He uses simple, vivid language. He uses tools like allegory. I mean, his own life story is a grand, compelling allegory of overcoming adversity. He uses these tools to present complex, emotional, and moral topics in a way that connects directly, bringing them to the audience's very eyes, as Quintilian put it.
So the core message resonates because the speaker feels authentic, the pain feels real, the transformation feels earned, and the underlying truth is actually quite simple. You must take responsibility for your life.
Exactly. And this authenticity is just crucial because genuine transformation, the kind Brown advocates for, is almost never a sudden flash of lightning. It requires persistence, which connects really well to Jim Collins's work on sustained transformation, whether that's in organizations or in individuals. He describes it as an organic, cumulative process.
Not an overnight miracle.
Definitely not. He uses the analogy of pushing a giant, heavy flywheel.
Ah, the flywheel. Yeah, tell us about that.
Imagine this massive metal disc, maybe mounted horizontally. To get it moving requires incredible effort. The first push barely moves it, maybe a few inches. Totally fruitless. The second push, the third. Still incredibly hard work, very little visible result. But you keep pushing consistently. Thousands of pushes, big and small.
Okay.
Eventually, the flywheel starts to gain momentum. It builds. Then it reaches a point where its own weight starts working for you. It helps spin itself. That's the breakthrough point.
And that breakthrough only comes after all the hard, seemingly unrewarded effort.
Precisely. Collins points out that the initial pushes feel frustrating, often invisible to the outside world. That mirrors the long, often lonely path of personal growth or building something significant. The public acclaim, the external recognition that, wow, look how much has changed. That only comes much, much later, long after the hardest work was done in relative obscurity.
That is such a powerful application of Les Brown's message in motion. The motivation he provides, the speech you hear, that's maybe the fuel for one push on the flywheel.
Right, a crucial push, perhaps, but just one. You have to commit to the thousands of pushes that must follow, even when nobody's watching, even when you don't feel like it.
You can't wait for that immediate night and day shift Collins warns against. You have to embrace the compounding power of incremental, consistent effort.
Exactly. And ultimately, the ability to deliver a message effectively, to inspire others to push their own flywheels, it comes back down to this core integrity, this character we talked about.
Emerson, right. Quoting powerfully by Covey.
Yes, Emerson summarized it just perfectly. What you are shouts so loudly in my ears that I cannot hear what you say.
Wow. Character communicates most eloquently. Your being speaks louder than your words.
It really does. And building that character, that inner integrity that makes your message believable, it requires the consistent practice of self-awareness and self-discipline.
How do you build it, practically?
It's about making and keeping commitments, Covey emphasizes, even the smallest ones, to yourself. If you promise yourself you'll get up 10 minutes earlier and you do it. If you promise you'll make that difficult phone call and you follow through. If you promise you'll walk for 15 minutes and you actually put your shoes on and go.
You build inner trust in yourself.
Exactly. Little by little, you build self-trust, inner integrity. This is what ensures that, as Covey puts it, one's honor eventually becomes greater than our moods. You act based on commitment, not just how you feel in the moment.
And that consistency, that lived integrity, it gives your message, whether spoken to others or just to yourself, the undeniable weight of lived truth.
That's the foundation. That's the bedrock of Les Brown's enduring appeal. It feels real because for him it was real. Hashtag tag outro.
Okay, we have, I think, completed our deep dive into the Les Brown legacy, really exploring the philosophy behind Live Your Dreams.
We covered a lot of ground.
We really did. We've mapped out those three crucial areas of transformation, haven't we? First, that internal shift from just reacting to life towards being proactive, taking ownership.
The internal war.
Then the external search, looking for those localized acres of diamonds opportunities right where you are.
Finding your backyard riches.
And finally, the mechanics of persistence, how you actually keep going, driven by that internal programming, modeling success, and aiming for that state of flow.
Yeah, pushing the flywheel. Les Brown's enduring legacy, I think it really rests on the authenticity of his personal struggle. The fact that he genuinely defied the limitations that others and the system imposed on him.
It makes the message believable.
Totally. His message of vision and hunger, it remains this profound and practical principle for you, the listener.
Yeah.
You are the programmer. Now you have to actually write the program with unrelenting honesty and commitment.
So the philosophy we've analyzed today is one of fierce, almost singular determination, individual drive.
Very much so.
But if that success is achieved, if you do live your dreams in that way, where does the focus shift then? Or does it?
That's a great question to ponder.
We want to leave you with the final thought, maybe a slightly different perspective. It comes from Kurt Vonnegut, actually advice he gave his son, which puts Brown's powerful individualism into perhaps a larger, maybe more cooperative context.
What did Vonnegut write?
He wrote, "Father, we are here to help each other get through this thing, whatever it is."
Help each other get through this thing.
So here's the provocative thought. If personal success, if living your dreams is achieved through the kind of fierce, self-driven hunger that Les Brown embodies, how does integrating Vonnegut's cooperative purpose potentially transform the very definition of achievement?
Yeah, does living your dreams ultimately mean just isolated individual success? Or does it perhaps find its fullest expression when it requires a shared contribution? Using the strength you've built, the dreams you've realized, to maybe help lift others out of their own difficult circumstances.
Is the ultimate goal self-actualization or contribution or somehow both? That's the tension maybe in the philosophy of success.
And it's certainly a question worth writing your next program around.